Hey guys, this is The Last Glow. I've been thinking a lot about Brandon Lee over the last few days. March 31st was the anniversary of his death, and I just started posting a lot of clips from his best movie fight scenes and some of his best clips from movies, anyhow. And it really got me thinking about just how much potential and talent he had. And I'm so still to this day very sad about him losing him, and the fact that we lost Bruce Lee, but yet we still had when his son started making movies, it kind of recaptured that feeling of like, oh, we still got a part of him out there making movies, and he was coming up and looking really good, and really doing some great things. He was if you watch the movie Rapid Fire, if you haven't seen that movie, check it out. It really showcases his talents. Everyone knows him for The Crow, which was great, but I think Rapid Fire is really underrated. He choreographed some of the fight scenes. He's it's focused on him. It's a great movie. It's an action. It's a '90s action movie, and it's in that style of a little bit cheesy, but those movies were great, and it's a classic action film that deserves a lot more attention. And he's just so smooth. He's such a good athlete. He was, he's a good-looking guy. He was really set up for big things, and and it's really odd how we lost him, and it was odd how we lost his father as well. So of course this leads to a lot of conspiracy theories. I wrote this article back in 2013 with a bit of a clickbait title. Does Bruce Lee's Game of Death reveal what really killed Brandon Lee? And maybe I should change that title, but because I don't really believe there's a actual conspiracy. I understand where they come from because there's such odd circumstances surrounding their deaths and how similar, a lot of similarities between their deaths. And then what this article really focuses on is a scene in Game of Death, one of Bruce Lee's movies, that was finished 15 years before Brandon Lee's death, that really predicts how Brandon Lee would end up dying. It's like a premonition of it, and it's really crazy. I first wrote this article in 1996. I wrote another version of this article, and back then I hadn't heard a lot of people talking about this, and maybe there was. I mean, it was the early days of the internet, but I hadn't seen a lot of stuff online. So I wrote this article which talked about this scene in Game of Death, and since then I've seen it pop up a few times, but still not a lot of people talk about it. Maybe they don't want to feed into conspiracy theories, but it's just crazy. We'll watch the clip here in a second. But the similarities between their deaths, they were both young, they were both died unexpectedly, they were both filming their fifth feature film, they both died before they would see their biggest success, with Bruce's film Enter the Dragon in 1973 and Brandon Lee's movie The Crow 20 years later. There was a lot of rumors surrounding Bruce Lee's death. Stuff about the triads, Dim Mak, Death Touch, drugs. It could have been a drug thing. But of course, there was also talk about, a family curse, which the movie Dragon Bruce Lee Story, which came out in 1993, talks about, is really focused on. In that movie, this curse is talked about. This is a curse that supposedly took Bruce Lee's older brother. And in the movie, Bruce Lee is constantly battling his demons. And he has these dreams that he's fighting this massive samurai demon. And in the end, the demon is taking him out. And it shows that, the demon's going to get Bruce. But Bruce is kind of about to die from fighting this demon. And then he sees that the demon sees Brandon, his son, and he works up the courage to finally defeat the dragon, and it represents the demon, and it represents that. Okay, so yes, the demon is going to get Bruce, but he's going to save Brandon from it. And then, of course, this movie comes out you know, a month or two after Brandon Lee died and was filmed before Brandon Lee died. And again, it's very eerie that he would die so unexpectedly, making it seem like, hey, this curse really did affect him. And then you look at the similarities between the way they died, and then how odd the way that Brandon Lee died. You know, let's take a look at how he died. So he died on the set of, a lot of people know this, he died on the set of The Crow. And it was during a death scene, his death scene. You won't actually see the take. It was filmed, but you won't see the take where he died. And, a lot of people look through the movie trying to figure out which scene it was he died in, and he gets shot so much in that movie that, it's easy to say, oh, it must have been here, must have been here, must have been here. But it was his actual death scene where the thugs that rape his wife, his girlfriend, kill him. And they reshot the scene and used the body double and then used digital processing to replace his face where they needed to. So you're not going to see the actual take in the movie, but it was when he got killed. And this also leads into that scene in the Bruce Lee movie, Game of Death, because in that movie, they're filming a death scene too. But before we get to that, let's talk about what happened with Brandon Lee. So he was killed by the lead tip of a bullet that was unknowingly lodged in the gun that was then loaded with blanks and fired at Brandon during this filming of his death scene. Okay, now keep that in mind, and then let's watch this clip of clip from Game of Death, a Bruce Lee movie that came out in 1978. And let me take a step back and say, yes, Bruce Lee died in 1973, and this movie came out in 78. It was made with clips that Bruce Lee had filmed, about 20, 30 minutes of real Bruce Lee footage, and the rest is all clips from his old movies and a body double, a very noticeable body double. It's actually pretty bad. They used cutouts of Bruce Lee's face and, put them in front of the body double's face, and it's pretty bad. But the 25 to 30 minutes of the real Bruce Lee stuff in it is amazing. Some of the greatest fight scenes you've ever seen. It's the stuff where you see him in the yellow jumpsuit where he's fighting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And he's fighting Dan Inosanto, and some of the greatest fight scenes you'll ever see in a movie. So that's worth watching the movie. And this scene here is worth checking out. I'm just going to play the scene and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, ready to roll.
So they're filming a movie within the movie. This is the Bruce Lee body double playing Bruce Lee. It's confusing. And then in the movie, he's an actor named Billy Lowe. And this is a scene that they're shooting. It's a death scene. And they're actually using clips from Chinese Connection, one of Bruce Lee's real movies, where he got killed in that movie. So crazy, right? Insane. This guy, he was an assassin, and he came in and used a real gun and shot Bruce Lee in the face and seemingly killed him. He didn't actually kill them. In the movie, he pretends to be dead, and he comes back and seeks vengeance against all the bad guys who tried to kill him that were involved in this, killing him. Which of course is the plot. The basic plot to The Crow, which is really interesting too. But I mean, the similarities between that and what happened to Brandon is crazy. You can't make that stuff up, and it's just so it's a coincidence. But the unlikelihood of that coincidence and the bad luck that led to that bullet being lodged in a prop gun during the movie, and the fact that 15 years earlier, Bruce Lee made a they made a movie with a Bruce Lee movie that is basically the same thing, or actually kind of depicts, the conspiracy theory that somebody really came in or put a real gun into the movie or that sort of thing. It's just insane. And again, I don't want to say that this stuff is true, that there's any foul play involved, because I think the real actor that was using the prop gun that ended up killing Brandon, probably took a lot. I believe he did take a lot of grief for that, and got attacked a lot for that, and blamed and that sort of thing. And he doesn't deserve that, because it was an accident. And even if by chance it was, and it wasn't likely to be him, it's who knows, something else going on there. But there's an interesting unsolved mysteries about that gun and how it ended up on set, which follows the traces
expressing yourself.
It,
shapeless.
I'm not going to play the whole thing, but
star in the action-packed world of martial arts.
It just talks about how unlikely it was
Bruce
that
and Brandon
gun
are
ended
also
up
bound
on
for eternity by an ancient
set.
Chinese myth. A few have called it a lethal family.
So again, I'm just surprised that more people don't talk about this. Maybe they don't want to play into the conspiracies anymore than all the crazy stuff that's already out there. But if you get a chance, you can read this article. It's on my website, thelastdragontribute.com. It's a website that's devoted to The Last Dragon, which is heavily influenced by Bruce Lee, which is why we talk a lot about Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee and that sort of thing, and other martial arts entertainment. So let me know what you think about Brandon Lee's death and how it happened, and if you've ever heard of this scene in Game of Death that really seems to be a premonition of Brandon's death. Let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, you can always say by following what we do here, it helps to keep the glow alive. So subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitter and Instagram at The Last Glow, and you can like us on Facebook at the Fan Tribute to The Last Dragon. And thanks for watching.